In the months after the bombing, still recovering from his wounds, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev remains defiant. In his jail cell before his arraignment, he taunts U.S. Marshals. When his trial begins 2 years later, Judy Clark will lead the defense team.
Judy Clark is a legend in American criminal defense. This is a woman who is famous for taking impossible cases and not getting acquittals, but getting life sentences as opposed to death sentences, which is not an easy thing.
As he was led into court, he was glancing over his right shoulder and smiling and smirking at his relatives behind him. I found that absolutely galling and reprehensible.
Judy Clark got up there in the opening statement of the trial and said, "It was him." Those were her words, "It was him." This was obviously very strategic on the part of the defense.
Clark's strategy: don't fight the charges, fight the death penalty.
The defense is trying to show mitigation. Yes, he's guilty, but consider the following about him. Consider his alienation from American society. Consider the malevolent influence of his older brother, which led him inexorably to this crime.
But the prosecution team isn't buying it.
Bill Weinreb, the prosecutor, said they were equal partners. If you put bombs down on a street and shred the legs of innocent men, women, and children, and then go into a store a half hour later and buy a half gallon of milk, can you really blame that on your brother?
There was just so much evidence. They actually showed the jury what these bombs potentially looked like. They brought pressure cookers into the courtroom. They let them actually handle these pressure cookers and see what was inside.
Inside, nails and BBs designed to inflict maximum carnage. The blast destroyed both of Jessica Kenske's legs.
Jess Kensky rolled by in her wheelchair with her service dog, looking for some kind of betrayal of human emotion, some sort of reaction to what was taking place around him, and we never saw anything.
Dzhokhar seems disengaged, disinterested, and unaffected, just as he was the day of the bombings.
You see Dzhokhar go in front of the Forum restaurant, and he stops very specifically in back of a bunch of kids who are lined up against the barriers. I think the most effective things that the prosecution said during its case is that Dzhokhar was there for 4 minutes. So in those 4 minutes, he could survey everything that was around him. And he left the bomb there and walked away.
It was really difficult to watch for anyone who was in that courtroom. There were tears with the jury, there were tears with the survivors who were in there, and there were tears in the media section. Because you see these people ringing cowbells, cheering on the marathon, standing just feet from the runners, just elation. And in a moment, you just see the bomb go off.
The jury also sees the bloody, bullet-riddled message from inside the boat.
Dzhokhar writes, "I do not mourn because Tamerlane's soul is very much alive."
It speaks to that death cult kind of ethos where if I die or those closest to me die fighting for the cause, then they're considered martyrs and they go to heaven.
After presenting only 4 witnesses, the defense rests.
The prosecutor closed by saying they thought they were soldiers, they thought they were going to bring the battle to Boston.
Yes, they absolutely do. Although overwhelmingly, those of that faith would say what they're doing is aberrant. In their minds, in their hearts, they feel what they're doing is completely about their religion.
After a month of emotional testimony from more than 90 witnesses, the jury takes just 11 and a half hours to reach a verdict.
It was so quiet in that courtroom. You could feel the tension, you could feel the nerves.
Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, guilty on all 30 counts.
It took 20 minutes to read the verdict. And I don't remember hearing any noise. I didn't hear any sniffles. I didn't hear any shouts. I heard nothing.
Now defense attorney Judy Clark will try to convince a jury Dzhokhar Tsarnaev's life is worth saving.
It takes 12 votes for a death sentence. So all the defense has to do is persuade one juror a death sentence is not appropriate.
There were jurors wrestling in their own head whether they could do it. And not only whether they could do it, whether they could sentence someone to death, whether they actually thought that was the worst thing they could do to somebody.
As the trial moves forward, the stories of pain, loss, and resilience are not easily forgotten.
Bill Richards' testimony, just talking about his family and what a perfect day it was and how they went to get ice cream. And what got me was when he said, I could tell you the flavors that they had. I remember everything. You just think back to that day as a parent, you think those are the moments you remember, the little details. You can't ever get back that perfect moment when they were sitting there eating ice cream and all three of your children were alive and all three of your children had their legs. It was a tough moment.